Welcome back, guys, and I'm excited to introduce our guest for today. But I'll let P give him a proper introduction. We made an exception for our guests. We usually require them to come down to just one letter to come onto this show, but we've given NVK all three of his letters. P, could you give him a proper introduction?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, he hardly needs an introduction. NVK has created I would say, the most well-known hardware device in the Bitcoin space. Um, he's created the Coldcard and many other products around it. But one of the things that I think is so interesting about NVK's approach is he always chooses security and effectiveness of the tool over the UX. He does an amazing job of combining them, but I'm really excited today to talk about how he makes those decisions and the thinking behind it. So, NVK, welcome to the show. You are a huge part of the Bitcoin space. Get in here. Oh, you're muted.
Oh no, you're pulling a P.
Hang on.
There we go. We
can. Oh, yeah, there. Hey, man, it's been a while, dude.
I know.
Yeah, the sweetest voice in the Bitcoin space. So yeah, thanks for having me, guys. This is I hope we have a good chat.
Yeah, I'm super excited, man. And just for the audience, the reason that my mute unmute situation is so fucked recently is because they're doing road construction like directly outside my window. So I'm constantly trying to like figure out how to like, okay, mute, unmute, and I keep fucking it up. So apologies. But
it's fine. You're just smooth brained.
Yeah, it's fair enough. Fair enough. So yeah, I mean, NVK, what would you add to your story? I didn't give the full spectrum of who you are and what you're about. Do you want to do that for our audience just so that everybody knows how fucking awesome you are?
I mean, I'm kind of irrelevant in a way. We have a team of people, and I was sort of because I was pre-doxed, I end up just being the face of the company all the time. But we are a very tiny team, but mighty. And we've been building hardware for Bitcoin since I think our first Bitcoin project was 2011, and then I think 2012 was probably when we started like doing actual hardware. We built Bitcoin HSMs back then. We built a block explorer back then. We did a lot of stuff. Maybe many people, if they've been in the space for a while, they have had CoinKite's debit cards. We used to have payment machines and debit cards that function as an exchange as well. They were all over the world for a while. 2014 was a little too early for those. What else? I mean, we had a web wallet for a long time. There was the backend for many exchanges, even BitMax, way back then. Yeah, we've been in this space for a while, and notably these days, everybody seems to be really into the open dime, the block clock, the Coldcard. Our NFC cards are coming, and a pile more of stuff. We just like building stuff.
Did you just say biomorph?
No. A bunch more of stuff.
Okay, I was gonna say, what the fuck does that mean? And I want one.
You can get a Brazilian out of Brazil, but you can't get the accent out anymore.
I love it. Yeah, man. I mean, I don't want to like blow too much smoke up your ass, but I think you've been in the space for a significant amount of time, and as I referenced earlier, I'd love to hear about sort of how you and your team make the design decisions that you do. Because do you think it's accurate to, was I accurate when I said that you guys choose security and kind of effectiveness of the tool over, like UX? Whenever those two things are in conflict, It's the other one, which is an unusual choice.
So I think there is a few things that, because most people who make products are not exposed to hardware development, they oftentimes, they do it as a hobby with a kit that they take, and so they have to inherit the kit's set of trade-offs. Very, very few companies in this space do the hardware from scratch, right? So that gives us a lot more room to to do the things the way we want. So that's why products tend to have a certain way of looking and being that are different than your standard sort of consumer electronics. And I think the main thing for us is we build products for ourselves primarily, right? It's like, is this the thing I want to use every day? That is the question we ask ourselves, and that's how we build the products, right? And the products are built to be truly utilitarian, but we joke that they need to have a personality and at least one joke in them. So we don't ship something unless there is a joke in them too. That's just how we are. We're super utilitarian, sort of like, we're not gamers. We're sort of like, like, we're not like, we're kind of weird people. And but we have a sense of humor, and the products have to have it. So like, is it the shape of the open dime? Is it the ECC calculator on Coldcard? Is it the Satoshi quotes on the block clock? Everything has to sort of like respect that sort of framework that we have for things. It's like, does it accomplish that? Not just accomplish it, does it thrive on that specific functionality that we intend the thing for, right? And some people know that some of us are amateur radio operators as well, so we like a lot of knobs and buttons. That translates into some how products are. We think that we should expose as much function and options and settings to the users. We don't treat users like stupid people. What we do, though, is we find ways to prevent ourselves and our users from making mistakes, right? So Coldcard is essentially the only hardware wallet that like does a lot of checks, on, say, change outputs and a bunch of stuff, so that you can't just easily get duped into something, or you can't just easily make a mistake. We have sort of like sanity checks on everything. And that's sort of like, and that's a security approach, right? Like it's very layered. So there is security, making sure users don't screw something up, even though they have a lot of options and features. We check also to make sure that addresses are right and all that stuff. We make sure that the menus have an explanation of what is it, right? And we don't try to hide Bitcoin from the users. We want the users to understand what's going on, because see, you could take the approach, say for example Ledger, right? Fantastic team. I know those guys. They care about what they do, but their approach is sort of like hide everything, right? But then the problem is their users go and they get a private message saying, hey, send me your seed. I'm here to help you, right? And they don't know what the seed is. They don't understand what's going on. So they go and they send the seed, right? So in every step of the way on how you set up your Coldcard, you can do it in like 30 seconds, where you just plug it in and it generates a seed and boom, you have a wallet, right? Just like every other easy wallet out there. Or you can take it all the way to full-on tinfoil cypherpunk mode, where you're checking the firmware, you're rebuilding, you're checking the components, you're throwing dice, you're doing all this stuff, right? The open dime is the same, right? Like, we don't want you to trust us, so we ask you to dump a file in, so we use that file provably to generate the private key. And that's also very selfish too. I just don't want to get kidnapped, right? If I had a product that was fully trusted on us, we would be a point of capture, and that wouldn't be very safe to us, right? So we try to build things with this mindset, where just being very pragmatic, utilitarian, and then try to create a product that we can manufacture in the scale that we do, which is not small, but it's not like Samsung, right? I mean, we make products for Bitcoiners, and we're at the mercy of the Bitcoin market size. So we try to sort of like find this very, very fine balance on how can we do that? How can we deliver the most amount of value, right? Remaining a profitable company so we can build more stuff, and that truly influences on how the products are designed themselves, right? It's like finding quality components, finding quality everything. The plastic is not just plastic; it's like polycarbonate that's like clear. It costs more, but like it has to be that way, right? So yeah, so like that's sort of like the give and take in the whole process, right? Like hardware is much more than just sort of like putting together some software into a chip. It's like, how do you design everything, and everything fits, and everything is a function of each other in both complexity and cost, and that's the fun, at least to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, actually, one thing that I do want to take a moment to do is to define the terms we're using. So can you maybe take us through what an open dime is and how that is different from a hardware wallet, and then kind of what a hardware wallet is and why it's important?
Sure.
In any order you want.
Yeah. So, okay. So open dime is essentially a physical Bitcoin, right? Traditionally, back in the day, the only way to give somebody Bitcoin without them having a wallet was to print a paper wallet. The problem with that is, if I give you a paper wallet, I can take the money back because I know the private key. So we spent years trying to figure out what can we do from like Metal or whatever. And then what Open Dime became is this thing where neither party knows the private key, provably. So then when you give it to somebody else, you know that they cannot do a chargeback, right? They cannot spend you. So you unseal it, and then you can spend the coins that are in it, or you pass it along to the next person and the nth person, right? So that's what Open Dime is. It's like physical Bitcoin. It's a bare instrument,
which is really novel. I mean,
it is.
Yeah, I mean, when you say unseal it, it's literally you have to like stab a hole through the board in order to unlock it. And
that was more because of personality. We could have done with software, but it wouldn't be as satisfying. And the very original one, you actually had to break a piece of the PCB.
I don't know. I kind of love that though, because it makes the entire process physical. So like you can literally look at an open dime and be like, is there a hole through this part of the device? Right. And obviously you want to verify the address and everything that separately, plugging it into something. But I think I don't know, it's a cool idea.
Yeah, that's what SatsCard product that's coming out is essentially the evolution of Open Dime. Open Dime's still going to exist, but it's like cheaper, and it's going to be NFC, and it has 10 slots, so you can have 10 keys in it, and you can have art and all that good stuff, right? So that's the fun on that sort of category of products we make, the bare instruments, physical Bitcoin.
And so this is the SatsCard, correct?
Yes.
So on the SatsCard, is it basically there's 10 slots, and then once you like you deposit funds into those addresses, and then you have to like unseal them, and once you've unsealed one of those 10 slots, it's like done, and you only got 9 left.
Yeah, and it will tell you that's been unsealed, and you will rotate to the next one, so they can reuse it 10 times because there was room in the chip, so we're exposing that to the users.
Oh, interesting. Okay, it's not limited to 10; it just rotates through.
Well, I mean, you can use the 10 at the same time, but yes, the idea is that you can use more than once, right? So there's a bit less e-waste.
Got it. I mean, as you mentioned, you made a reference to it. I think the only thing that I would have against something like that is that it would be much harder to shove something like a credit card form factor into one's rectum in order to like safely transport it across a border, which, as I understand it, is why the Open Dime has those rounded edges.
I mean, that was really made for Jensef. He was very unhappy with the square corners.
I'm sure he tested it out many times before giving you that product feedback.
I did not ask for products back. So then the card is like that, and we're gonna have some fun cards that are sort of like covert as well. One of them looks like a hotel key, and if you go to the address, it's like a hotel website.
Oh, that's so cool.
We're gonna have a lot of fun with that stuff.
Oh, I fucking love that.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, so feel free to continue on the thread that you were on, or I was going to say, can you describe for the audience, like what a hardware wallet is and why it's important when we're talking about Bitcoin?
Yeah. So hardware wallets are essentially a means for you to store a key, sign a transaction outside of a computer. So back in the day, everybody used to get robbed all the time, right? Get computer hacked or accidental or whatever. And then hardware wallets came about. And then a lot of those issues started to fade because you were essentially separating the signing and the key and the key storage from the computer, right? Because computers are this extremely general purpose devices that have a football field worth of attack surface, right? Computers were not designed to hold secrets. So say, for example, you copy a piece of text on your screen. Every program on your computer can see that clipboard, right? So it's an absolute disaster of complexity, right? There's millions and millions and millions and millions of lines of code running and like, hundreds or thousands of processes running at the same time. It's very difficult. And even if you do make your computer secured, there's still like a ton of stuff, even if the most open source computer, that you absolutely cannot open. Okay, like it is a total pipe dream to think you can make a computer secure. Now, if you're an extremely advanced user, you have a chance, right? You can do some stuff to keep it that way. But realistically speaking, for most people, including people who are advanced, you rather just offload all that to a device that purposely built, very narrow build for Bitcoin, right? So, and hardware wallets are actually a misnomer. They should have been called signing devices, which I made a little website for, signingdevices.com. Explains why. So a wallet is a piece of software that has blockchain data information. It has the ledger, right? So Bitcoin Core, Electrum, whatever. So they go and they pick your transaction, your UTXOs, right? And then they build a transaction. Now, if they have a private key in them, they can sign it. If they don't, then they send it to the hardware wallet. So Coldcard made PSBTs, partially signed Bitcoin transaction standard, like widely used now. And it's essentially a file that you take into the hardware wallet, which is not connected to the internet, is not connected to anything, right? And the hardware wallet, the signing device, all it does is like tells you on the screen, hey, do you really want to send this amount of Bitcoin to this address? And then you say yes or no. And then what it does is it creates a signature over that transaction, right? And then you can take it back to the computer and send it out to the network to broadcast the transaction. So it really is like just a device to not shit where you eat.
It's a great way to say that. I'm totally stealing that. Your slogan should be "Don't shit where you eat." Mm-hmm. Use a signing device. Yeah, I mean, I think so. We talked about attack surface, and you mentioned that it's trying to air gap one's computer is basically it's not going to happen, right? It's just not feasible. I also just want to acknowledge, like, you have so many domains that just redirect to random places. What is the one that's like, don't try to air gap your computer?
No, I think it's air gap computer or computers.com. I think I lose track of the domains.
I love the CSS on that one. Yeah, so I mean, so you've got this purpose-built device, a signing device that does one thing and does one thing very well. As you said, it basically lets you verify that you actually want to make a transaction, and then when you hit a button, it generates the signed PSBT, which then can be rebroadcast to the network by an external thing.
That's right.
And talk to me about the design decisions that went into, what has changed over the years when we go from, because there's been 4 versions of the Coldcard so far, and what's changed over the years? What upgrades have been made? Why were those important? And why is the newest one kind of more secure than previous ones?
Yeah, so version 1 wasn't going to even have a case. We just made it because I was not happy with the hardware wallets that were in the market, and we wanted one for ourselves. That was just that simple. And the touch buttons on that one were kind of problematic for most people in Europe. Somehow it was not doing well. So then and he was using the first gen of that secure element, and then version 2 had a better secure element, and clicky buttons, and a few other sort of improvements. Just general sort of. That's why we call it MK, right? So Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3 is just like incremental improvements. And then Mark 3 is it was a very big upgrade. Again, newer secure element that had some fixes, which was kind of cool. And we started supporting a lot more features as well, right? So we speed up things, a lot more security, improvements on the duress pin. What else? There was just a lot more sort of improvements, generally speaking. And then Mark IV was a huge upgrade. So Mark IV has a family up on the main processor. So it's like it's night and day. We joke that's infinite memory now, because essentially now we can sign any transaction size. The bottleneck would be the Bitcoin network, not Coldcard. So if you're a miner trying to sign a bunch of small inputs, we can sign it. It has 2 secure elements. So Mark III is undefeated, right? Nobody ever. So Mark II Ledger managed to spend enough money to get in, right? And it's not reproducible that easy. Anyways, it's very complicated. You need a $1 million lab, and you might screw up the sample. Mark III, nobody has to this date managed to provide us with proof that they can extract the seed, and that's like with some heavy resources behind. And then Mark IV, we're like, hey, how can we make this extra stupid? So we went with 2 secure elements and this new processor. So it's really cool. And the way we design Coldcard is that we don't trust any of the chips. They don't trust each other, right? So even if you pound one chip, you cannot get the secret out, because the secret is going to be encrypted with a secret that's on the other chip. So now you need one of each. You need 3 of them.
Wait, sorry. Walk me through that. How does that work?
Yes. So because secure elements are kind of like black boxes in a way, we don't trust them, right? Even though the ones we use, we try to find the dumbest, most secure chip that we could find. So there is no real software in them. It's called fixed function silicon. It means that the chip just does the functions that are on the silicon. They don't have firmware. They don't have any of that stuff. So it's a lot better to audit and all those things. And a lot less room for backdoors and things. So we don't trust any of them. So we make them have to use a different chip for a shared secret.
Oh, interesting. Got it.
So that if the device is off, nobody can go, with their known backdoor. Say you're like, the NSA, right? You go to the chip and you say, hey, I want to use the backdoor that we put on you, on your design. And
now they have to have backdoors for both chips, yeah.
Yeah. No, but now it's 3. And they're from different vendors.
I love it. So one thing, I mean, we spoke a lot on Clubhouse previously, and one of the points that you made is that even with all these significant security upgrades, one should approach it or think about it as if someone had enough money and they had, a super high-end lab that they could eventually get into one of these devices. Is that still the kind of way that you would articulate it?
Well, I mean, I think we arrived at a point now with Coldcard's design that, I mean, given infinite resources, infinite times, and infinite samples, anything is possible, right? But what we do is we raise the cost of attack, we raise the time of attack, and we raise the failure of attack, right? Because they only really have one go at each chip, because they can break the sample.
Yep.
Very easily, right? So now, because you have 3 is exponential failure rate. So it's, it really becomes a problem.
So let's go into, even with this, a super secure hardware device, one can still lose one's Bitcoin, of course. So what are the most common ways that people tend to, fuck this up and basically lose access to their Bitcoin?
I think the main thing is, as I like to say, is most people will screw themselves out of their coins before somebody takes them from them. So, for example, people will have complex backups, right? They're gonna, put the backup in a QR, or they're gonna print it, or they're gonna make some convoluted, self-invented encryption, whatever they're gonna do.
Yeah, do not roll your own crypto, Jesus.
No. So what you should do is you get a metal plate. We make a cheap one, or go buy it from somebody else, and you put your 12 to 24 words there, okay? And you're already ahead of 99% of the people, because house fires do happen. Is this 100% proof of house fire proof? No, right? It's still a piece of metal that could heat enough and something else could destroy it. But if you put it in your backyard or your basement or whatever, right? Like, you've already increased your chances of survivability much more, right? Another thing that you could do is have a passphrase. Make sure.
Oh no, did we lose you?
And saying, hey, we need you to.
I think we lost you for a second. Is there any way you can get to higher bandwidth internet? Or is this?
No, I'm remote on internet, satellite internet.
All right, sounds good. Keep going though.
Yeah, no. So if it starts getting choppy, let me know. Turn off video. That helps.
Okay. Your audio is still good. So even with that, we'll keep going.
All right.
So
yeah, go ahead.
Or go ahead, NBK.
Yeah, no. So that's it. Make sure you back up in metal. If you are concerned about single metal, we did invent a new setup called Seed XOR, so that you can split the seed safely, not rolling your own crypto, not splitting the seed literally in half. And the
idea there is that the XOR operation is basically standard, so you can just
it. I mean, it's standard computer program, and you can do it by hand with a PDF. So even if you have a solar flare event that wipes half the earth, and you are on the unfortunate half, you can still recover with using a PDF pen and paper. So
okay, time out. We're gonna stop on this topic because I'm so sick of this fun. Can we list between the three of us at least 10 different things that, quite frankly, if something were to happen and all of the internet were to shut down, there are 10 other very vital things that we could very quickly and easily assess that would also be in just as much trouble as Bitcoin. And I'll even go so far as to say, all of your finances are fucked. I don't give a shit if you're a Bitcoin maxi or a fiat maxi or fucking Peter Schiff and all your gold. You're not going to do anything if the internet's down with all that money. So I just wanted to chime in and say that 2 cents.
Yeah. So the solar flare event, I mean, one is for a solar flare to be that strong, the amount of problems you're going to have are ginormous. So all the airplanes are going to fall. Probably the power grid will stop because the distribution is electronic, and some might still get a little bit because maybe the box was properly, but you'd have to be so immense amount of power. Let's just assume all the fail-safes fail. So water stops, power stops, car stops, pacemaker stop, internet stops, everything that you know in your life that is post caveman stops. You can't even run a farm anymore because a tractor will stop unless you have an old tractor.
Yeah, it's the least of your concerns.
Yeah. Your toilet won't flush because it's going to back up because the sewers probably have pump as well.
You're watering the faucet.
No, but here's the thing. Bitcoin survives because the other half of the planet will have a copy of the blockchain. So now you just take a flight from the other side to come pick you up. You take your seat to the other side and you make a transaction.
Flights don't work. Flights don't work. So how are we getting there, MVK?
No, it does. It does. The other half of the planet will still survive. So it's only half the planet that gets exposed.
So I've got to wait for some flights from the other side of the planet to come over here.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
If your amateur radio gear is going to still work because it was powered off while
Dude,
that was
happening. Actually have like survival radio equipment that I take when I go backcountry snowboarding. So this is good to know. Good to know that should be on the definitely take everywhere I go in the world going forward bag.
Anyway, so this is actually something like yeah, no. As a brief diversion, like talking about, obviously, NBK, you have broadcast a Bitcoin transaction over ham radio, which is fucking awesome. What is the current state of using like mesh networks to broadcast Bitcoin transactions? I know
it's very similar to renewable energy.
Totally fucked.
It's a toy. So no, see, this is the thing, right? Amateur radio, whenever shit happens, is the first thing that comes back online. The hams have nothing else to do but to go help people with their gear. It's how half of them justify its existence. So it really is there. It's just it's low bandwidth and it's cumbersome, right? But it's like full recoverable. It's amazing. It really is. And there's like 50 different modes and all kinds of stuff. You know, I can reach Japan from over here, and I'm very far away from there. So you know, all the stuff is doable. It's just how much pain because it's you know, low bandwidth and cumbersome. That's all.
Got it. I want to hear your thoughts, shifting completely direction. We were talking about inflation before you jumped in. We're talking about the CPI print today. As a Canuck, what is the experience that you're having around the prices of goods going up? How is that affecting you? How is that affecting your business?
Are, you can think of Canada as essentially 30% worse than the US, generally speaking, about anything economic.
Got it.
You know, so just think about our dollar parity spread, right? The difference that we have, that's normally our compounding issue, generally speaking. We are a strong exporter of energy and resources, right? So even if the country is completely idiotic about not exporting the oil in the proper volumes that it needs to, we still export a lot of crap. So Canadian dollar is still fairly strong. That's why it can be a tiny, was it like 100th of the American economy, 1,000th of the American economy, and still have a currency that's fairly strong. But you know, and you have strong rule of law and, you know, things like, except from Trudeau wants to put truckers in jail. But aside from that, you know, it's still a solid country, right? With solid people and solid resources. So it survives. It will always survive. But you know, food is more expensive. It's a cold country, so you have other issues as well that come with that. Yeah.
Q,
I was surprised. Yeah. Sorry?
No, go ahead.
Keep going, MVK.
The CPI announcement was kind of I don't know, they just didn't think further. Like who cares, right? Just go and say, oh, it's 6 or 5. Who cares?
That is exactly what I was saying before you jumped on.
I mean, you know, like the dollar is already a construct, right? Like it's very postmodernist. So might as well have the CPI be postmodernist as well, right? Just say the number, meme it into existence, you know? Just keep on saying the CPI is 5 or 4 until it becomes 5 or 4. That's it.
I mean, there has to be a degree. There's a degree of, like, I do agree with you. Like, they could just very well have just said, like, CPI is 5, everyone shut the fuck up. But the truth is, even 9.1 reading is complete and utter bullshit here in America. Because that's not, like, when I go fill up gas this morning, it was not 9% inflation from when I filled up last year. on July 13th. So,
but they call that as external. It's because of external effects or whatever.
Yeah, it's
right?
all Putin's fault. Right?
they've blamed everything but themselves because, and as I said at the very beginning of the episode, you have people grading themselves and being asked to then share with the rest of the world, hey, how was the work that you did that you self-report on? Like, what is the incentive for them to turn around and say we messed up, or even we got it right? There's no incentive either way. So if we want to use P's logic to like really understand why they do what they do, it's because there's a degree of accountability that does exist through, whether or not you like them or not, mainstream media asking these things, because the truth is people are upset over it. So they're creating a lot of narratives and dialogues and clickbaity titles that say, oh, the price of gas is this, save money on your grocery trip by doing this or that. So that the information or the idea that inflation is here is in the zeitgeist, and it would be such a disconnect from reality, which, mind you, there is already this disconnect from reality from what these people in DC tell Americans and the rest of the world of what's going on. There is that disconnect, but it would be such a stark, almost in the vein of the comment of let them eat cake from the French Revolution of, it's not my problem. So like, I don't care. Like, give them whatever. Like, no, that's for better or worse. Technology has connected us in this way that if we want to hold these people accountable, we can, but for whatever reason, we just don't.
Yeah, I think it's an illusion. You can't keep them accountable. It always Nancy Pelosi is like $500 million now net worth. I mean, there is no accountability for the modern, soft socialism state that exists now, right? Is a total and full on kleptocracy. And at least like in Canada, media is fully subsidized by the government, and you also have the state broadcasters. So there is only one narrative, and unfortunately, so the majority of the population don't live like in the city centers, right? It's almost just slightly less than a half. I think the U.S. distribution is similar. And people outside major city centers have a normal life and don't give a fuck about any of the shit that's going on in the world. All this stuff that like we all argue on Twitter, or like these things are completely like irrelevant to most people living their lives. And I think it just happens that a lot of us is just a little like hyper connected in a way, sort of like hyper aware of all the issues. And that creates sort of like the cycles of like doom and gloom, which also sell a lot when it comes to media, right? There is always bad shit happening in the world, and there is always good shit happening in the world. When the markets are going down, they only focus on the bad shit. And when the markets are going up, they don't really mention the good shit either. They just don't focus on the bad shit as much. So like, it's this weird thing where it's like, there is very little good news, generally speaking, about anything, because nobody really cares about good news. It's a weird
Good news doesn't
thing.
sell. It's
But
the
I think
inflammatory.
it's deeper than that. It's just maybe just humans interested in things that are not like sounding the alarm on something, right? We just sort of like take it for granted. But I think just like social media, the way that we live now, is sort of like just compounds this natural ways that we are. And
So does Bitcoin fix this, or?
Yes.
Okay, good. That was a test.
It fixes everything.
So I want to MVK invite you down to my mother's basement with me and put on your tinfoil hat. And I want to share a theory that I've never been disproven on this. I came up with this in 2014. So in the 8 years that I've come up with this conclusion, I've yet to hear a counter that, suffice to say, made me change my mind. We in America live in a very religious country. We like to think we have separation of church and state. We do not. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Christianity is the number one religion in the world, or Catholicism. I always mix up the two. Not really religious. My bad. Either way, there are 4 signs of the end of the world, as was taught to me by an ex-girlfriend from years and years ago. The first being some sort of natural disaster. Why do you think you hear about a different hurricane every year? Why do you think you hear about the tsunamis? That's the first of these 4 things, natural disaster. The second being some sort of crazy disease. As far back as I can remember, like COVID has been COVID, but dude,
Is this your 4 horsemen bullshit?
The new 4 horsemen bullshit. But
yeah, I mean, you're really going back to Egypt there.
But bear with me now. Dude, when I was a kid, like mad cow disease was a thing. I remember not eating a burger for a while because they were like, oh, mad cow disease. Like, I think I was like 6. I don't really remember much. I just remember it was a thing.
Creutzfeldt Jacob will fuck you up.
Swine flu was a thing when I was in high school. Like, these weird diseases have always been around, and they always are picked up by the media. So again, a little bit weird, a little bit fishy. So that's number 2. Number 3, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, is man fighting another man. So like, that's why like you always hear war coverage.
That happens literally every day, everywhere.
Like, that's the point. The point I'm trying to make is all of this stuff is happening all the time, but we get it reported to us every single day as though it's like, this is it. This is the one. This is the end of the world. And they keep us interested in all of this information because they give us like the most doomsday scenarios, and these religious fanatics and the people who are programmed into buying into this whole the end of the world, this is sort of going to be the final markers of it, start to pick up on these clues, whether subconsciously or intentionally, and then they get tied into finding and getting updated more on the latest disease outbreak or the latest natural disaster.
Here is an alternative view of this for you. So religious people actually were the people who fought against the most on say COVID, and how COVID was handled. Religious people looked to each other to how they handle things. It's almost like everyone has their cult, and the stronger the religion, the harder the cult bubble, right? So they actually are less impervious to outside influence of news, in my opinion.
That's interesting.
So, you know, when you see how all this shit is like really sort of like becomes crazy, it really is like the more atheistic sort of a city dweller that sort of buys in more into the doom and gloom that it is the people, like I was saying, like, for example, in the countryside, who don't give a fuck about what's going on in the world. So, you know, part of the reason, in my view, on why sort of like the whole COVID response was this absolute insanity is because, you know, the population asked the politicians to handle it. People were screaming at politicians, telling them to close borders, to do this, to do that, to do masks, to do, you know, it was the people. And because you have things like Twitter and Facebook, you can actually reach the politicians publicly and shame them directly in a big way. So they respond. I feel like the same is true for, say, for example, money printing and inflation, generally speaking. You know, it's the population who wants the free shit. The aristocratic sort of like ultra wealthy class doesn't give a fuck either way. They're gonna be fine. So in their view, is like, sure, leave the plebes what they want. It's gonna make my assets go up too, but it wouldn't make much of a difference to begin with. So if they want, you know, free credit to go buy 10 houses even though they can't afford it, sure, give it to them. It's gonna keep them from killing me. So, you know, the people have a lot more power than they think that they do, and they do exercise the power. It's just they just happen to exercise this power in a terrible direction because of sort of like this compounding terrible incentives, and Bitcoin fixes that.
I was going to say, bring it all the way back. Bitcoin is a religion. Bitcoin is a cult. I thought that's the direction you were going.
I have no issues with being a part of a cult. Call Bitcoin a cult. Hey, great. We're part of a cult now. Wonderful.
No, we follow logic and reason and none of that. Okay.
What is the most absurd thing Bitcoiners do that even by your standards, you're like, all right, this is a bit too far, guys?
I don't know, man. To each their own.
I love that. That's the best answer.
I think that's true. We may have temporarily lost NBK, but for me, it's definitely sunning one's balls. That's like a thing that the Bitcoin community seems is like super important. I guess it's really like sunlight, but man, there's a huge contingent. It's wild. NBK, your video or your audio is choppy. Oh, maybe it's back
I missed
now.
where you guys were.
Oh,
no, we said to each their own comment was beautifully put, but I don't like beautiful. I like clickbaity shit. So I'm gonna keep poking at this.
Are you gonna dye your hair blonde?
Oh, it's like you read my mind, bro.
Damn. Yeah. What the fuck was that?
How you feel about? I don't want to directly antagonize him, but like, fine, on the narrative and the idea of to each their own. How do you feel about people who spend time and money both in this space as well as other crypto ventures?
I have this huge sort of like a fight within myself about like I am a pro freedom person, right? Like I want people to be free to do whatever they want, if it is to scam or to create scams, whatever, right? And the market should settle those things. It's hard to reconciliate that on a daily life, right? Like it's like, what do you call out? What do you don't call out? Why don't you just ignore it? It's none of my fucking problem, right? I don't have a resolution, but that's sort of like the constant like inner battle of like, you know, what do you engage with, what you don't engage with. You know, in a way, it's like I rather the Ethereum guys get away with their bullshit security and then have the state deal with them. But I'm not going to deny that there's going to be a lot of Schadenfreude of seeing them like going to jail too. Like,
yeah, you're going to be drinking those tears.
I am human, right? Like it's like, but like, you know, I prefer no regulation, and I prefer, you know, like sort of like these things being handled by the market, including with people calling each other out, right? Like one way in which the market resolves that is people screaming about how the other guy is a scammer to advise his neighbors, right, that he shouldn't do business with him. You know, like Vitalik was very crafty on how he always sort of like created his narratives around Bitcoiners. Like the Maxi thing was his invention. Because he started his Ponzi, and we're all calling it out. So yeah, it's tricky. We're gonna see a lot of people quit Bitcoin all the time. That's just how it goes. It's just the money is just too sweet in the scamfi.
But like, what is money, bro? Like, if you're chasing money and you're going to avenues that give you more fiat or more shit coins, like to me that's just a sign that you don't actually know what money really is. But that's just because I'm an arrogant piece of shit who read Safety's book one time years ago.
I mean it's nice to have money, you know, like there is only so much stoicism people are willing to have or do, you know, like I think like flaunting and sort of like buying Lambos, but like, you know, having nice things is a nice thing.
Yeah, I do think that there is a tendency to like moralize business decisions in the Bitcoin community that I think is misplaced. I think, you know, for me personally, and everybody has their own metric, it's about like, you know, not causing harm to other people. I think when people start promoting things that are scams that other people are going to get like totally fucked over, that's really bad. But there is this weird disconnect. Like in the Bitcoin community, it's like, you know, and I do it as much as anyone, like screaming at people who, you know, don't follow the sort of Bitcoin only maxi ethos. Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, it's like, oh, like somebody owns stocks. That's cool. You know, like somebody's like trading, like playing the market. Like everybody's like, hey, yeah, that's cool. Do your thing. So there's a lot of contradictions in the Bitcoin community that get really old after a while. But
well, the thing is, there is no community, right? Like it's like there is no dollar community.
Yes.
Right? There is no gold community.
No.
Just,
wait.
There is like self-interest.
Yeah, and Davos proved that there is a dollar community.
Fuck Davos.
I mean, it would have really been Jekyll Island, right? Like it was just a hunting trip. You know, if you ever have a chance, read
that's a great reference.
the what is it?
Most Dangerous Game.
No, the Creature of Jekyll Island. Fantastic book.
The Creature from Jekyll Island. That is an amazing book. It's a fucking tomb, but everyone should read it.
I'm not saying I disagree with you, P. I want to poke a hole in something that you said, or at least the way you presented it. Because to me, if you ignoring everything you said after when people start losing money and getting scammed, a lot of the presentation of that sounded to me no different than the way ESG is fed to the masses. This is for the benefit. This is for the best interest of society, for the environment, for whatever subset, whatever group, based on the judgment of other people.
I mean, humans need trust, right? It's an inherent human condition, and it's essentially social efficiency, right? Like, you cannot function as a person in society or in a family without trust, right? You have different trust levels, different trust circles, but without it, like, you don't go sleep at night with your eyes open in case your wife stabs you because she was mad at you earlier today because you
Speak for
didn't change a
yourself.
diaper or something, right? Like, so you have trust, right? Like, you need trust, you need credit, there's many things you need, right? To sort of to create stuff and to live your life. But like the issue is when sort of like you have essentially this scam artists, right? Like, for example, the CEO of Celsius. I mean, like, you look at like how like they were selling their stuff. The guy literally describes a Ponzi. He's like, and there's that interview with like Safe and I think somebody else and Tone. The guy's like, we can pay amazing yields. Look, we take deposits from person A and we give it to person B.
Oh God, I know.
And I'm like, that's a literal Ponzi.
It's so fucking bad. I could talk about. But
the problem is, like, you can't save everybody, right? Like, and people were screaming about Celsius forever. Some people are looking for easy money, either because of greed or because they're just unfortunately uneducated. And like, hopefully people learned the lesson, but like, people clearly didn't, because I think people were still depositing into Celsius to try to.
So I went into one of those rooms that are like, Celsius Cope rooms. And I actually was like, I came in like, all right, I'm going to take some stuff. I'm going to send out some like fiery tweets about how like, and I ended up just being like, this is so sad. I just left. I was like, Jesus, like, these are like real people. Like, it's so depressing. But here's what I want to do though. Let's shift away from that because it's too fucking sad and depressing. I want to talk more about, I want to choose violence. NBK, what are some things that have happened recently that have gotten you very like irritated or actually excited? It could be positive too. What's got you excited or furious in the Bitcoin space right now that we haven't yet talked about? Whether technological, new.
I mean, bear markets, like normally bear markets are a lot of fun. Traditionally, like, you have a sacrifice, you have
the blood moon rises.
You have like people sort of more focused on building, and this bear market has been super cringe. It's super cringe, and sort of that's kind of like annoying, and so so we chose violence. We were like, fuck all this shit, we're just gonna go build. So we're building a bunch of stuff, and trying to sort of like focus on that. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's just like, there's a lot of like bad faith players that came into the space as well. Like cold moochers and other things like that. That's sort of like, it's a bit of it's like.
But to your point, it's a tale as old as time. It happens every cycle. It happens even outside of Bitcoin. It's just a constant.
Well, that's the cycle, right? And reality is, right, like, Bitcoin was a cozy thing. The last bear market is a cozy, tight, neat, like, smaller space. You have, like, there's different sort of like types of Bitcoiners that do their thing. But, this last cycle became very mainstream, right? So you're going to start having a lot of normies coming in.
And Matt Damon did that whole commercial, the Super Bowl ad.
There you go.
He educated people in that commercial.
And I think that's just the path. I mean, like Bitcoin is gonna grow much more, and all this nerdiness around the money, all our maxi or orthodoxy, and all these things are gonna get much more watered down. And because that's how things grow, right? They water down. You know, the internet was the same. BBSs were awesome. There was a certain way of being on the internet, and you know, the internet became, you know, like people sharing pictures of their meals on on Facebook, right? Like, I mean, that's far from, like, you know, gifs on BBSs, right? Like, so yeah, I mean, it's just, but you know, that's not necessarily a bad thing either, right? I mean, it's just more people using the thing that is meant to be used, right? Like, there is no stake on the Bitcoin, like, protocol, right? There's nothing there that says what kind of meal you have to have, or religion you have to have, or anything, right?
But if you read between the lines of the code, you can see clearly. Exactly. Only eat meat, sun your testicles.
I mean, eventually everybody arrives at that if they go the Bitcoin route. I mean,
I'm not yet that enlightened, unfortunately. I will say there was a spaces, like, I don't know, fucking feels like years ago now, where I was messaging you like, bro, you got to get in here. You know, we're talking cool shit. And you were like, I'm so sorry, I'm busy. And you sent me a picture of, like, your crossbow, and you were like, I'm hunting moose. And I was like, damn, that is a flex. I was very impressed. My parents would never let me have a crossbow, but they would let me shoot guns. They were like, crossbows are too powerful. I was like, what the fuck? So I want to hear more, like, what are you excited about in the Bitcoin space? What new developments, what protocol improvements or projects or companies that are out there do you think are actually interesting?
Yeah, so there's too much fucking going on in Bitcoin right now. That's why we, you know, even started the pod, like, plan.
Oh no, we're losing you.
Review podcast, because, like, I just needed a place to sort of, like, put together a list and go over what's new.
NVK, can you try turning off your camera?
Okay, hang on.
Turn off your video.
There you go. Is it better?
Even your image is pixelated. But that is better. Keep going.
All right.
So you were saying you started the podcast.
Yes, so that I could keep track of projects. And you know, this week, like, the list is monumentally huge. So there is the Fed Mint, which is like a Chaumium server thing, so that you can have, like, you know, it's a different type of trust network.
Oh yeah, let's talk about that. Well, so take us through some of those things. So
I can't yet. I can't.
All right.
I need to read more.
All right.
But it's essentially just like imagine like a little network that has a central entity that controls the system, but all the transactions are private. Kind of like a side chain, let's put it this way. It's not really, but what else? Oh God, I can actually open the list here.
Yeah, do it. I want to hear from you. Like,
hang on, let's see here. Episode 2.
Q, what's got you super excited in the Bitcoin space?
There you go. Got it. Sorry guys, did I cut off there again?
No, you're good. Keep going.
All right. So there's the new BTC server version, Electrum private server version. Hugo from Nunchuck released a video now using TapSigner. TapSigner is our new hardware wallet. It's like a blind signer NFC card. So you just tap and you sign a transaction in the card. So that's really cool. Zoos have a new release. Blockstream is releasing aggregated signatures that are non-interactive, which is kind of nice. So that means you're going to be able to do a kind of aggregated signature that you don't need to have the devices all online at the same time, essentially, so that you have multiple signatures between them.
Wait, what are the implications of that?
Well, so far, all the solutions that were around required everybody to be online. Like, imagine kind of like a multisig, for example, right? Imagine if everybody had to be connected at the same time to do the multisig in a group. That's both a security issue, right? Physical security, because now everybody is essentially exposed. You know when everybody's going to have to be signing. And then it creates like technical issues, right? Because you have to have the connection between all of the devices together at the same time. So this solution essentially removes the need to be interactive. So like it's just like each party does their thing once. I don't know if it's in order yet. I haven't read the paper, but essentially streamlines that. And aggregated signatures, these are semi-aggregated signatures. They help with privacy because you can put a bunch of signatures together, so it looks like one. Also have not read enough there to know to what extent they go in that direction, because it's semi-aggregated. I want to know which part is semi.
Those are the details.
Yeah, so like, you know, like, but these are all sort of like very cool sort of new things. Apparently silent payments, which I have not read much about it, is also out. What's his name? OGBTC. He released Marshall. He released a little board for you to overclock your.
Oh, I saw that.
Yeah.
I'm so excited about
cool.
that.
Oh my God! I mean, dude, the list is insane here.
So here's one thing that we've talked about in the past around Schnorr and Taproot. The recent upgrade to the Bitcoin protocol. So we had talked about the idea of threshold signatures. So yes. Multisig being the idea that basically with multisig, which we're going to talk about a little bit with Craig Raw, you have like 2 of 3 signing devices that have to basically sign a transaction in order for it to be valid and mine into a block, right? But with threshold signatures, the analogy that you always used was like you can have less secure devices that basically contribute, let's say, less to the actual transaction. It's a terrible analogy, but where are we on threshold signatures?
Okay, so think about it this way: a standard Bitcoin signature is essentially like a signature in which you're compounding each signature. But think about it this way: you have a piece of cord and you make 3 knots on it. So those are the 3 signatures. And then you toss it to the network. And everybody in the network can see the 3 signatures on it, right? Everybody knows what's going on. With threshold signatures, it's more like a pie. So from the outside, looks just like a pie, a covered pie. Okay?
I imagine you just stopping there and being like, it's a pie, end of story.
Yeah, but then inside of the pie, you define the threshold. Is it just a quarter of the pie? Is it a fifth of the pie? And each part of the little bits of pie inside can be defined by you as well. So how much a pie piece is sized. So you have so you have essentially like a lot more definition of like the size, the weight of each piece, right? And how much of the total do you need? And from the outside, because it's a linear signature now, from the outside, it looks like a single signature. So you don't know that there were 10 signers or 1 signer.
So the idea is that you could have, as I understood it, you could have less secure devices. Like you could use a phone as a contributor to threshold signature scheme, and you would just give it a smaller slice of that pie. Is that?
That's right. Yeah, so that's right. Because if somebody gets the little piece, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and there's like, if the pie has to add up to 100%, then you'd have. Is it accurate to say that you'd have multiple devices that, in some, would be more than that 100%, but essentially you need 100%?
Yeah, okay. Exactly. It wouldn't matter, right? Like, but why 100%? Why don't you just make it 50% of the pie? It's all you need for making a signature, right? So for making a valid transaction. So then you can have a phone that's just like a third, and then you can have another device that's 2/3. Say you have a Coldcard doing 2/3 and a phone that does 1/3.
So where are we with that? When threshold signature?
There is no. That's called Multisig instead of Multisig. And Multisig, I don't think there is a spec yet. Let's put it this way: a formal spec yet. It's very complicated cryptography.
And sorry to put you on the spot, but what is the difference between Multisig and Frost?
I don't know.
Okay, fair enough.
I can't remember what Frost is. Not
Fair
at the top
enough.
of my head.
Got it. All right, where should we go from here? What else are you have you been thinking a lot about in the Bitcoin space? What's come up across your desk that has caught your fancy?
I like simple things. So I think that the Nunchuck wallet that Hugo is making is a big deal because he allows for, if you're old enough in the space, you would remember a wallet called Copay that then got bought by BitPay and then it was destroyed. It's essentially collaborative multi-sig that does not have a centralized entity, right? I mean, you might still use Nunchuck server as just a way of doing the message routing between them, but it's encryption to it's E2E encrypted and so end-to-end encrypted, and I think eventually you'll probably be able to run your own server kind of thing between the parties, right? But having multi-party multi-sig that's like very easy with like just a tapping NFC card is super powerful, especially for small businesses and sort of like decentralized entities, right? Like say for my company, we don't have an office, right? Bitcoin Magazine doesn't have an office, if I remember right, either, right? I mean, you guys have a location.
No, we do know.
Nobody's there, right?
No, the team is huge.
NBK, let's keep pushing this narrative though, because there keeps being this godforsaken reason to force people to show up to the physical office that we have, and I am not a fan of this in any way, shape, or form.
Right. What else?
Wait. Can you define?
Sure.
You just used a term that I want
collaborative
to make sure
multisig.
Yes, yeah. Can you talk about collaborative multisig? What that means and how that is different from traditional multisig?
Yeah. So like technically speaking, is the same, but in practice, the difference is that different people have different keys. So in normal multi-sig, just for yourself, you are the one who have all the keys, right? So you have a key at home, you have a key in a different country, and you have a key, I don't know, like under the ocean somewhere, right? And then if somebody tries to attack you at home, you don't have all the keys, there's nothing you can do, right? But that's just you. Collaborative multi-sig just means multi-party multi-sig, right? So it means that, I have a key, Q have a key, P have a key. If we want to send a transaction, I send you guys a message encrypted in this app saying, hey, I want to send, $10 to this dude who has a funny meme, right? And then one of you have to approve it. I mean, saying that is a 2 out of 3 kind of wallet, right? But like making that smooth is not easy, right? And then there's also like the type that is like Casa or Unchained do, where they're essentially just one of the keys, but you're still capable of transacting without them. It's just different variations of who has control of keys. It's a very, very needed thing in business. Like you have to have an operational wallet that you have more than one person sign, and it's super useful.
Makes sense.
Yeah. What other projects are like super cool right now?
NBK, I got a different question for you. If you'll entertain me. So you two are far, far more technically inclined and advanced than myself. And the truth is, as we continue to onboard more and more people, we're more likely to get more people who are like me and less people like you and P. I'm a big believer in the 80-20 principle that of 100% of users, 80% will not really understand or know what they're doing, while 20% will understand the nuances. I am deathly afraid of opening my Coldcard. Not really, but like it's been set aside for a period where I have 6 hours that no one is going to bother me, so I can actually like really do this properly. At what point are these trade-offs something that we're going to have to really assess to further onboard the masses? And I'm not saying this in a way to say like, Coldcard sucks. Coldcard is, in my opinion, the best option out there for cold storage, but I also worry that it can.
No, I totally get it.
So
yeah, no, it's a very fair representation. So in my view, as we move from a few 100 million people using Bitcoin to a few billion people using Bitcoin, first is you can't save the majority, right? Bitcoin is not for everyone. Bitcoin is available to everyone. It's a very different, very, very different thing. The majority of people will have Bitcoin in centralized entities, right? Because it will be easier, it will be cheaper, and it will come with insurance, and you will have other sets of trade-offs, right? Is it terrible? Yes, absolutely, right? Is it going to be, a lot of fraction reserved? Yes, right? Are we going to see a lot of them failing? Yes, but it's not going to go away, right? It's just, that's just the reality, right? Like of how things are. The internet used to be a lot more decentralized. Everybody used to run their email server and their, like IRC server and everything. And then even IRC became fully centralized. There's like two massive players and that's it, right? And IRC never actually further into where it was supposed to go, which was the federated, where the servers would talk to each other. It failed that way. So it's just because the friction versus the risk versus the gain are just not there in value, right? Like, because reality is, through modern history, the majority of the people don't lose their money at the bank, right? Even though there are events, you could be the sucker that does. In most Western countries, like, people still have their money. I got mine taken in Brazil, but like, it's Brazil, so people will make different sets of trade-offs in Brazil. And there is a reason. It's the reason why, like, people put their money in all these yield stupid places where they give you, like, a few percent on your Bitcoin, because you're getting a few percent on their Bitcoin, and they're used to institutions not running away their money in a lawful country, right? So anyway, so my point is, a lot of the Bitcoin will be centralized. I don't think we can get away from that. That's just reality. I mean, you look at the amount of Bitcoins inside Coinbase is huge, right? And it's only going to grow. So we should accept, understand that, and try to improve that, and try to get more people away from that. Now, the other part is, how can we make the people who do want to save themselves, who are not necessarily in the 20%, right? In the Pareto principle, they're in the 70%, right? Or even the 60%. We can help them, at least with part of their funds. So phone wallets are going to be huge, right? So people are going to have their seed on a phone wallet. The problem is, phones are fully pound, right? Anyone can, like, at the airport, they can copy and get into your phone. They stick in a little machine and they'll get your data out. They might not be able to do it right there and then, but they'll send it to a lab. They'll get it out. So phones, but it's still an improvement, right? Now it needs to be, say, law enforcement that is the one who takes away from you. It's not just some dude on the street. And then, what we're trying to do now with the tap signer is, can we make a hardware wallet that's sub $50, so that your phone wallet doesn't have the private keys, or it has just half of the multi-sig of the private keys. So that further improves that, and it's just a tap. There's nothing else to do. There's no screen. It's cheap, and maybe the quorum is enough that if you lose it, it doesn't matter. You just send it to a new wallet, start again. And then hardware wallets per se, they are improving. The software is improving and getting easier. I don't think they will ever be easy in a way that that, like, the sort of like the straw man of easiness exists, because it's similar to a computer, or to, you don't run your own email server. If you do, now there's no middle ground between running your email server or not running your email server, or you do it yourself, and nobody runs email server because they're pain in the ass. So I think will continue to happen is large economic actors in Bitcoin and a lot of plebes will run their own nodes and continue to self-validate and keep the network in check, right? Because otherwise Bitcoin fails. Miners will 100% run their own nodes, because for them it matters even more which fork they're spending their energy into, right? Um, developers will do the same. So there is enough incentives for enough people to maintain the network safe and have good solutions, and you keep on improving the solutions, right? So like, Coldcard offers a certain set of trade-offs, but then, for example, maybe you want something that's a little bit easier, that you have to trust the vendor, then maybe you go to something cheaper like a Ledger, right? Whereas closed source, you're trusting them, but it's a company with some reputation. You can put all the shit coins you want in it, right? And that's the value proposition in there, and people do go there. I mean, it's one of the ones that sells the most. um, but should a Bitcoiner that have real Bitcoin do that? No, right? And people do, as they sort of go through the rabbit hole, they do instinctively find their way, right? I always joke that like Ledger is my best sales funnel. People learn how to use a hardware wallet Ledger, and then they buy a Coldcard. And then they keep their shitcoins on their Ledger. The majority of the people will have shitcoins. It's not going away. It's only going to grow exponentially from now, right? Because every scammer or every person who doesn't know he's a scammer yet is going to want to create their scam, because it's just too easy. Right? It's zero friction scamming. So those scamming markets will grow too, and it will take, like, it took, like, gold is what, like 2,000-3,000 years old in terms of like human history using gold as a store of value, right? Like, the dollar is now 100 so years, right? Well, actually more. And I think it's just more options. The world will have more options. A lot of options will fail hard in the coming years because of the amount of shit show with modern economic theory. But the tools and the evolution of Bitcoin tools will follow sort of like a traditional sort of way in which technology evolved, like how cars used to kill people by just going over a rock, and you jumped out until you figure out you could use a seatbelt, and you can have airbags and all this stuff, and now you can go 140 and still not die. Like electricity is to kill in your house. Like, they have these amazing posters about how electricity kills, right? So, and people still don't understand how electricity works. Like, most people have no clue how the lamp turns on, right? So, but it does, and they trust it. So, and do they have their own power generation at home? No. Maybe we will when batteries get better. But anyways, in this whole convoluted explanation, my point is, things will evolve as the market requires it. Like, we sell to like most Bitcoiners, right? And most Bitcoiners have no issues with the device and teaching their families and their kids and their grandparents and whatever, right? Like, somehow they all figured out. So I think as the feedback loop in the market improves, new products will come out, we will improve, and sort of like just slowly and surely things just keep on going.
Sorry, I was about to pull a P. In this scenario that we're talking about, though, will there, in your opinion, ever be a point where Bitcoin that's held by like individuals could maybe trade at or be valued higher than Bitcoin that's held by some third party custodian if we go down some path?
No, maybe now in scale because of friction, right? And sort of like the efficiency is not there. Bitcoin is a very sort of like inefficient market still. I mean, look at price discovery. It's two guys and a dog trading right now, and they can dunk the price like $20,000, right?
No, there's three dogs. It's two guys and three dogs.
Right, exactly. I mean, nobody's selling. I have not met a person who's selling, right? Like, it's like you look at the volumes of the exchanges, it's pathetic. So it's just like inefficient price discovery, right? So it's just that I don't think if there was a difference in price for that same UTXO, with the same scalability and the same fungibility, I think Bitcoin would fail. Right. I mean, that could be a small premium here and there, depending on the country you're in. Right. But like, if you just sort of like, if you average out, right, because, maybe you live in a country where, it's super heavy handed regulation, right, against free Bitcoin. Let's put it this way. Uncaptured Bitcoin. So maybe in your country, there will be a premium. But like, if you travel to another country to spend the Bitcoin, you'd be normal price. Right. Like, it really depends on like where you are, but I think he averages out.
Well said. Q, unless you have any other questions, I think at this point we'll wrap it up. NVK, thank you so much for joining us. I want to give you the last word. Where can people find you? Where can they follow you? And how should they check out your new podcast?
Right. Well, I mean, you can find me on Twitter at NVK. You can check out our products on coinkite.com. Go listen to the new pod. And if you have new projects that you want to highlight it, that's the whole goal of this podcast. Just reach out on bitcoin.review. That's the domain.
Well, thank you again so much for joining us. We're going to go to a quick commercial break, and then we will be back with Craig Raw, creator of Sparrow Wallet.
Thanks for having me, guys.
See you in a minute.